Hey y'all, so today we are going to be talking about some immigration updates, news. There's going to be fee increases coming soon. So you really want to tune in for that. I'm going to show you how you can change your address online and why USCIS is hiding this way of changing your address. Updates on biometrics appointments, what you need to make sure that you take with you because they're changing some of their processes on that. And then finally, we're going to talk about interview waivers at the consulate. There's now three categories of people that can get their interview waived. So you definitely want to stick around for that. I am U.S. Immigration Attorney Lillian Chukura, and I help my clients get green cards and citizenships for themselves and their families using the U.S. immigration law system. So this is our monthly update. If you have questions, put them in the comment. Good morning. Thank you for joining me. If you have questions, like I said, go ahead and put them in the comments so that I can respond to you as I'm going through these updates. All right. So we're going to start with the not so good news. Okay. Last year, if y'all remember, I did a video about the fee increases and how USCIS wanted to increase the application form fees by about 40%. Okay, they want to increase the fees by about 40%, and we talked about it. I told y'all to make sure to comment because the comments help them understand why they shouldn't increase the fees or at least not increase it as much. So they got over 8,000 comments on this one fee increase that they want to do. So typically before they can make a final rule on what those increases are going to be, they tell us what they want to do. The public gets to comment, and there were over 8,000 comments on just this one topic. Thank you all for joining me. If you have questions, put it in the comments. Say hi. Tell me where you're joining me from. Okay. Today's all about immigration update. So they got the 8,000 comments. The comment period has ended. So now they are in the final stages of increasing the fees. So when I tell people 2024 is the time to apply and not wait because we don't know when this is going to be implemented. So we know that it is currently with the White House Office of Information and Regulatory Affairs. That is the final stage before they can then put out the final rules. So we are expecting that they will put out the final fee schedule by April of this year. So we will know by April if they're going to increase the fees, or, well, not if they're going to increase the fees, but more of how much are they going to increase the fees by, based on the comments that they received, based on what this Office of Information and Regulatory Affairs thinks of this topic. Okay. So, yes, fee increases. Hi, thank you for joining me from Nashua, New Hampshire. Yes, yes. They are going to increase, and yet applications are now moving as quickly for some filers as others. So, yeah, unfortunately, this is the case. So when you have a preference category, you still have to wait for a visa to become available. So they're increasing the fees, but they're not making more visas available, which then increases the backlogs. And increasing the fees makes it sometimes makes people not able to actually file because it is a financial hardship. And most of the forms, especially the green card application for, let's say, a spouse, a child, those do not have fee waivers. So there's certain applications, there's certain basis for a green card. So if you're filing for a green card based on VAWA, asylum, these other categories, you may be able to get a fee waiver, but for the most part, if you're filing for a green card, there is no fee waiver, and you have to pay this new 40% increase fees. And then also, if you qualify for premium processing, which is mostly for employment-based applications and people changing their status. So if you, let's say you're on a B2 visa and you want to switch to an F1 student status and you're in the US, you can change your status, and also you can qualify for premium processing. Premium processing allows you to have your application typically decided within a month. So there's the normal processing time, and then there's the premium processing time, and that is much, much faster. I believe the last one we did premium processing on, we filed the change of status to student on a Thursday, and by the following Monday, we already had a decision. So premium processing is definitely very valuable for people that qualify for it, depending on your visa category. But those premium processing fees are going up. Okay, they're going up. If you file your premium processing application on or after February 26th, 2024, you're going to have to pay the higher fee. Okay, unfortunately, you're going to pay that higher fee. So they're going from $1,500 to $1,685. And then if you were in the category of the people paying $1,750, it's going to go to $1,965. If you were in the category of people paying $2,500, it's going to go to $2,805. So that goes into effect February 26th. So if you know you want premium processing for your application and you want to pay the lower fee, make sure that you postmark your application before February 26th, okay? So postmark means you took it to the post office, they stamped it on February 25th. Once it gets to USCIS, even if it's after February 26th, you're still going to get that previous fee. But if it's postmarked on February 26th, so you took it to the post office on February 26th, you're going to have to make sure that you put that new fee. And if you do not put the new premium processing fee, they're going to reject the premium processing form, okay? So those are the fee increases that we're going to be seeing this year. So we know for sure that the premium processing one is going into effect February of this year. We know that we're going to get a fee schedule to at least know which applications are increasing and how much they're increasing by, and also when it goes into effect. So usually when they increase the fees, it doesn't go into effect immediately. They give us some time, so maybe a month or two before they go into effect. So we should be able to find out what that date is by end of April. Okay, that's if everything stays on schedule. All right. This is such a good point, Evilok. So they're saying, I'm writing to my congressperson in regards to making more visas available for F3 families. Yes, your congressperson is the person that you need to be reaching out to when there's new bills being passed, when there's new regulations, because we want comprehensive immigration reform that takes into account the current status of visas, right? The fact that there's people waiting 15 years or more for a visa to become available for their particular category, right? The Congress can change that and make more visas available. So reaching out to your congressperson is a great way of advocating, not just for yourself, but for other immigrants in your same situation. So that is a great point. So, excuse me. The next thing I want to talk about is the biometrics appointments. So when you file for most USCIS forms other than an I-130, you will need to do a biometrics, especially if USCIS does not already have your biometrics on file. So if that's the case, they will have you go to a biometrics appointment, which is basically the fingerprint you and take your picture. Okay, that's what they do at those appointments. It's not an interview. It's not any of that. You just have to make sure that you show up on time and get fingerprinted or your picture taken. Sometimes they just need to take your picture and not your fingerprints. It's really up to them. Okay. So one thing that they do want people to know is that when you're going to a biometrics appointment, please, please, please make sure that you're taking your biometrics notice and the second page. So typically there's the biometrics notice that tells you the date and time. And then on the back, there's the questionnaire that asks you your name, your date of birth, your height, all those information. Make sure you take both of those to the appointment. Okay. Make sure you take both of those to the appointment, because if you don't, a USCIS officer that's on site. So what they're doing right now is if you show up to your biometrics appointment and you don't have that notice with you, the USCIS officer on site will have to look you up, find it, print it, make you fill it out on site, and then you can get your biometrics done. However, that process is going to change. So in the next few months, USCIS is changing their biometrics locations so that a USCIS officer will not be on site. So when you go to your biometrics appointment, it's just going to be a government contractor that, takes your fingerprints, and that's it. If you don't show up with your notice or that second page with your information on it, they're going to turn you away. You'll need to reschedule your appointment, and they're not going to be able to print you a new one because there's no USCIS officer on site, and USCIS is not going to give their contractors access to people's information. Okay, so make sure if you're going that you are taking the first page and the second page, okay, and filling out the second page. Do not just take, because sometimes you get the notice on your phone that you have a biometrics appointment, and you just take, I have an appointment on this date. Great. But they still need that paper. So make sure that you are going with it. Hopefully in the future, that will no longer be necessary, right? As they're modernizing their system, hopefully that changes. But for now, this is a new thing that we're learning, okay? This is brand new that we're learning, that they're going to be making sure that there's no USCIS officer on site, which then will mean if you don't show up with the paperwork, you're going to have to come back another day, okay? So if you are getting value out of this video, please make sure to hit the like button. I will truly appreciate that. And then I see a question here. So let's pause for a question from Jeffrey. Good morning. I have a question. If my parent entered the US without inspection in 1999 and depart back to their home country in 2012, will they still be subject to the 10-year bar? Yes, but by now the 10 years has passed, so they wouldn't need a waiver. So that's really the question here, is whether they will need a waiver or not. So if their entry in 1999 was their only entry into the US, once they depart, then there's a 10-year bar. And you have to wait for that 10 years before they will qualify for a visa. So if they already passed the 10 years outside of the US and they can show that, they would qualify for a visa if you were to file for them. Of course, like I said, it will depend on if that's their only entry, right? But you still want a consultation to just make sure that there's nothing else that you need to be concerned about. But as far as the 10-year bar is concerned, once you stay in the US for a year or more, and then you leave the US, you have that 10-year bar to being able to get a visa. But once you finish that 10 years, you're able to then qualify for a visa again. All right. So next thing I want to talk to y'all about is something that I noticed recently with a client that we were trying to do their change of address on the USCIS.gov website. And USCIS was hiding a way of changing the address. So let me show y'all what I mean. So typically, when my clients go to do their change of address, or if we're doing the change of address for them, we can just go ahead and change the address with no issue online. I have a whole video on how to change your address. Okay, that's how that's how important this is, because you need to change your address within 10 days of moving if you are not a US citizen. So only US citizens can get away with not changing their address with USCIS. Okay. So if you go on this page that says how to change your address, you go down here, you will see that USCIS tells you that there's two ways of changing your address. It's either you create a USCIS online account, right? A USCIS online account, or you file by paper. You fill out the form, you print it, you sign it, and you mail it to USCIS. They're telling you those are the only two ways. Those are the only two ways to complete this. Well, I'm here to tell you that there's a third way. So if you watch my video on how to change your address, you know that you were able to have a third way of filling it out online without having a My USCIS online account. Okay, USCIS wants everyone with an application with them to sign up for My USCIS online account. That's what they want. So they're going to push that. So here they're basically telling you it's either you create this online account or you have to go through filing it on paper. Those are the only options they're giving you. But on this page, if you scroll down to related resources, so that's why I'm telling you, they are trying to hide this so that they can force you to create the online account. So if you go to related resources on the same page, right, on the same page, and you see they have the USCIS online account, the AR11, which is the form you will fill out and print out and mail to USCIS. And then they have this option. That's the online change of address. That is the link you will use to change your address online without having a My USCIS online account. Why that wasn't given as a third option, right? Why didn't they give that as a third option up there? They told you there's only two ways, but when you go to the related resources, you can still find this third way of doing it without an online account. So this came out because a client couldn't log into their online account. They lost the password, the email that was connected to it, everything. So they were confused because they didn't know how to update it because they don't have an online account that they have access to. So we had to find this for them because it's right here. It's just hidden, right? If you do not know to look at the related resources, you wouldn't even know that there's this third option because they tell you clearly right here that there's only two ways. When we know, right? When I know there's a third way, and now you know there's a third way to actually change your address. So you can either, and there's two ways to find this. So you can either go on the how to change your address and find the online and go to related resources and find that, or you can go to forms right up here. Let me make my screen smaller. So if you go to forms, and right here it says all forms, you click on that. When you click on all forms, you see the first form that you see is the change of address. Instead of clicking on the change of address, go ahead and click on File Online. That way, you can still file your change of address online without a My USCIS online account. Okay, so they tell you right here on the alert that they are doing this because they want to get everyone into that My USCIS online account. They want you to use this new thing that they launched, which is great. I always tell people to sign up for a My USCIS online account because it is helpful, right? It is helpful. So I tell people to sign up for it. But if you don't have access to it, if you don't want to sign up for it, you do have this other option. So make sure you know this, and you're not thinking that you can't actually change your address online because they're telling you that you only have 2 ways of doing it. No, there's 3 ways, okay? There's 3 ways of doing it, and I hope that was helpful. And then the final update, the final news update that I want to share with you all is now there's three categories of people that can get their consular interview waived. Okay, that means people outside of the US that typically need to go to an interview at an embassy to get their visa. There's 3 categories now that do not need to do that. So before there was only one. So we'll start with that one. So before, if you're renewing your visa in the same category within 48 months of that visa expiring. So let's say you have a B1, B2 visa that expired, December 2023, and now you want to renew, you would qualify for an interview waiver because you're within the 48 months of the expiration and you're trying to get a B1, B2 visa under the same category. So you would qualify. They've added 2 more. So if you're a first-time person applying for an H2 visa, okay, a first-time applicant for an H2 visa can actually get their interview waived. Okay, first time, never applied for any visa ever in their life, can get their interview waived at the embassy. The second new category of people that can get their interview waived are anyone, right, that wants to apply for a visa. And if they meet 2 of these categories, they can get their interview waived as well. One is they have to have had a non-immigrant visa before. So if you've had a non-immigrant visa before, other than a B visa, okay, other than a visiting visa, other than a B1, B2 visa, let's say you've had a J1 visa, a H2 visa, right? If you've had any other type of visa other than a B1, B2 visa in the past, right, you would qualify. And if you're applying for this new category, within 48 months of your prior visa expiring. So let's say you had a H2 visa and now you want to get an F1 visa, right? H2 to F1. And you're trying to see if your visa interview will be waived. The question becomes, are you applying within 48 months? Because if you're applying within 48 months of that H2 visa expiring, the consulate officer can waive your interview. Okay, this is not, so I want to make something clear. This is not automatic the consular officer may choose to waive your interview, or they will have you come in for an interview. So just because they're increasing the people that would qualify for this new visa waiver, the interview waiver, it does not mean that the officer reviewing the file will not schedule you for an interview. So it's really up to the officer. They're giving the officer the right to waive the interview. So this is great because before this, like I said, it's only people that are renewing in the same category within 48 months that could get this interview waiver. And typically USCIS has a broad interview waiver directive, right? But the consular, they're very minor categories. So if you are filing for an immigrant visa, so you're getting a green card through marriage, through your child, through your parents, you are going to have an interview. The interview waiver does not extend to immigrant visas. This is only for non-immigrant visas. So I hope that is clear. I just wanted to answer a question I see on Instagram. How can I get a B1, B2 visa from the UK? Well, you need to have, so in order to get a B1, B2 visa, you need to show that you have every, you have to show that you have every intention of going back to the UK, especially if you're a UK citizen. If you are a UK citizen, you may qualify for ESTA. So if you qualify for ESTA, you can use that to come into the US for 90 days and visit and then go back to the UK. But if you want a B1, B2 visa specifically, you need to show that you have enough ties to the UK that you do not have any intentions of staying in the US past your period that you're given to stay in the US. And you will do that by filing a DS-160 and then signing up for an interview with the embassy in the UK. Okay, so that is a quick rundown on that. I do have a whole video on a B1, B2 that you can watch on my YouTube channel as well. Okay, like I said, if you are getting value out of this, if you have questions as well, put your questions in the comments. If you're getting value out of this, if you like what you're hearing, go ahead and like this video just to let me know that you find these helpful and that I should keep doing these updates. All right. So I do not see any new comments. If you're just joining, remember you can ask me your immigration questions. If I don't see any new comments, then we can wrap it up. Let me give you a quick breakdown of what we have talked about so far. Fee increase is in the final stages. We should be getting an updated fee schedule, hopefully with some decreases in the fees that they propose. So we should be getting that final fee schedule by April 2024. And then that will let us know when the new fees will actually go into effect. Premium processing fees will increase. Okay, anything postmarked on or after February 26, 2024 will require the new premium processing fees. USCIS is hiding one way of changing your address online without a My USCIS account. You can find it under the resources, related resources under how to change your address page on the USCIS website, or clicking on all forms and then file online for the AR11. For your biometrics appointment, you want to make sure that you are taking your notice and that second page that asks you for your name, date of birth, address, height. That page, you want to make sure you fill it out and you take it with you, because in the future, there will be no USCIS officer at your biometrics appointment. so they won't be able to print you one on site. So if you don't go with it, you'll have to schedule a new biometrics appointment, which will just delay your case. So make sure you're taking that with you. The consulate did add 2 more categories to people that can get their interview waived. The previous one was people renewing in the same category within 48 months. The new one is people getting a new category, right? A brand new category of non-immigrant visa if they've had a non-immigrant visa before, other than a B1, B2 visa, and they're applying within 48 months of their previous visa expiring, and anyone first time H2 visa applicants, even if they never applied for a visa before or had a visa before, they can get their interview waived. All right, I see some questions over here. Let's see. How long does it take to renew a work permit? It depends on the category. Right now, it is taking some time, okay? I won't even lie to you. Renewals are taking longer than the initial application because they figure when you file for a renewal, they give you that extension. So you have a 180-day extension when you file the renewal. So they kind of take their time, and most of the time they are taking up that 180 days. So I'll say between 6 months to a year right now. That's what we're seeing for the renewals. You can do an expedite request if it's been pending for a while and you are in a work situation where they're threatening to fire you. If you can show proof of that, you can ask for an expedite, and that typically will lead to the case being processed faster. Kev, good morning. Thank you for joining me. Okay, Gonzalez, let's see. What questions someone can expect from a marriage green card interview? Oh, all the questions. So I have a video specifically on the marriage interview questions, but let me give you a quick breakdown. You are going to get questions about each other. So how you met, where you went on your first date, who proposed, how was the proposal, the wedding, who was there, all of that, right? Your day-to-day life as far as where you work, where your spouse works. If you have children, they will ask questions about the children, even if the children are not let's say your spouse has had a child before you two got married, and they want to know things about your day-to-day life with that child living in your household. So what time does the child go to school? What time, what school do they go to? What activities are they involved with? So whatever is going on in your life that the officer is aware of, they can ask you questions about. And then questions about your home is another one. They can ask you, what type of stove do you have? What type of colors are your walls? Who wakes up first? What type of TV show do you watch? Just all of those. Okay. Like I said, I have a whole video on it, and it is a whole, for my clients, we do a whole mock interview where I ask them questions as if I'm the officer, and they usually get a lot of value out of it because sometimes you don't know that you and your spouse have different answers to the same questions, especially the first date and how you met are things that is sometimes you're not going to have the same answers. Okay. So it's really good to go over those ahead of time. So you definitely want to think about making sure you're on the same page as far as where was your first date, when was your first date, because I've had cases where one spouse said their first date was Dunkin' Donuts, and then the other spouse says, oh no, it was when we went to dinner at this fancy restaurant. So The first time they hung out, they went to Dunkin' Donuts. So to one of the spouses, that was a first date. To the other one, it was just a first hangout, not a date. So it's really important that you know those questions, because that's right. That question is what's going to lead to whether the officer is going to go deep into the questioning, or if they're going to kind of pull back and just be like, okay, they're on the same page. So if you get the basic question of how you met, when you met, if you get those wrong, the officer is going to go deeper in your questioning. Okay, so definitely want to think about that and watch that video on the green card interview questions, because I did try to go through all the categories of questions and make sure that you are in a good place with that. Hi, Kasmida. Good to see you. I'm so glad you're here, and I'm so happy for you. So just wanted to say that I'm so happy for you. Your comment on my last live, I'm still so proud of you for not just asking questions, but listening to the questions and getting the results that that you wanted in the first place. So happy for you. If anyone has any other questions, please go ahead and put them in the comments. Like I said, we talked about the different updates, but I still want to make sure that I'm answering your questions. Okay. So Kev is saying the validity of green card are extended for 48 months pending when the removal of conditions is approved for the 10-year green card. Is this true? So they were being extended for 48 months, yes. So when you file your removal of conditions, USCIS will send you a receipt notice. The receipt notice will tell you the months it was extended for. So typically it is 48 months. Sometimes it takes them 48 months, 4 years to make a decision on your case. And in those 4 years, you use that receipt notice to travel, to work, everything that you could do with your card. So also make sure that you do not lose your card. Even though it's expired, you still need it, because let's say you want to travel with just the card, and you want to travel, you will need the card and the notice, because how are they supposed to know you're still within the 48 months if they don't see your card? So it's really important that you do not lose the card, because the card and the notice is what actually extends your green card, not just the notice itself. You have to have both. If you lose the card, you can do added ADIT appointment with USCIS so that you can get a stamp in place of the card and the notice. Again, that's if you lose the card. But if you have the card and the notice and you're still within the 48 months, it serves the same as if the card never expired. So that's the good thing there. Okay. Ooh. Let's see. Follow-up question. What if the husband was married before and have children in that marriage, and the spouse lived back home with the children? Do the officer ask about that marriage? Yes. Yes, they do. They will ask you if you've met the children, if you've talked to the children. Yeah, so they will ask about it, because again, it's in the forms. They will go through the forms with you. So not just the relationship questions, but they will ask you questions that are on your forms, and they will get to the part of, has your husband ever been married before? And if you'll say yes. Does he have children? Yes. How many children? What's their names? How old are they? Have you spoken to them? Have you met them? Those are the questions that will flow from there if that is the case. So just be prepared for those questions, because yes, they will definitely come up, because on your forms you put that he was previously married, you put that he has children. So those are questions that the officer will most likely ask you. So you want to be prepared for that. All right. Like I said, if you have questions, put them in. Right now, it's just about answering your questions, okay? So go ahead and ask me your questions. And if you're joining me on Instagram, you can also ask me questions. I am looking at all, all of it to make sure I'm getting all your questions answered. All right. Okay. So I'm just going to highlight the key updates that you want to know about, because as you're planning your green card process, your citizenship process, your immigration process in general in 2024, if you're planning to start that process now, you want to know these key things. So the first key thing you want to know is that there is going to be a fee increase, and we're going to be finding out how much the fees are going to go up by and when they're going to go up, probably in April of this year. And then typically, once they increase the fees, it goes into effect months after. So maybe a couple months after that, the fees will go into effect. Typically, they don't make it go into effect immediately. So that's the good thing there. But as you're planning your green card process, you really want to pay attention to that, because I can tell you that the fees for the I-130, the I-485, the I-765, the I-131, those are going up. Okay, all of those. So the I-130 is anyone filing for a relative is filing an I-130. And then the green card application is the I-485. That's going up as well. The work permit is the I-765, and the travel permit is the I-131. And the crazy thing about how much this is going up by is that not only are the fees individually going up, but typically, if you're filing your green card application in the US, so you're filing an I-485 and the travel permit and the work permit at the same time, you don't have to pay a separate fee for the I-130 and for the I-131 and for the I-765. Okay, so if you're filing the green card application, you get the work permit and the travel permit free under that. But if they don't change the fees, they propose. So if they go with the fees the way they proposed it, people that are filing in the future, once this fee goes into effect, will have to pay the green application fee and the travel permit fee and the work permit fee separately. It won't just be included under the green card application fee. So hopefully, as it's going through this Office of Information and Regulatory Affairs, they will think about not doing that. But that is what they have proposed. So if you're thinking about applying for a green card, it is cheaper to do it before April than it will be once this fee goes into effect. All right. All right. So, follow-up question from Gonzalez. If someone has an asylum case during the green card interview, do they ask questions about that? So, I've really only had this happen once, where the officer asked questions about the asylum case. And it was based on the fact that the asylum was based on the person being gay, but now they're married to a woman. So we had to I had to argue with the officer a little bit on that, but typically that's the only place that comes into play, unless there's information on the asylum application that doesn't line up with the information on the green card application. Then the officer will bring that up. But the officer is not there to decide whether you qualify for asylum or not. They're only there to decide whether you qualify for the green card through the marriage. Okay, so the only time they'll bring up the asylum is if there's something in there that goes against what you're currently applying for, which is the green card through marriage. I can tell you that I've had cases where they never mention it because there was no relationship between the two. Okay, so you really want to look at that, but typically they don't mention your asylum case because they're not there to decide the merits of your asylum case. They just want to make sure that there's no inconsistencies between your asylum case and your marriage case. That's it. And if they think there's an inconsistency, they may ask you one or two questions about it, but not like a full-blown asylum interview. Okay. All right, Kev, can you get F1 visa approved for a community college from Nigeria, or does it have to be a 4-year college? Oof, that's a great question. So can you? Yes, you can. Should you? That's another question. So depending on what you're coming here to do, as far as school is concerned, I typically suggest a 4-year university in some of these because the embassy already looked. Oh, I'm Nigerian, so I can I can talk about this. The embassy already looks at Nigerians applying for visas as if they are lying, right? So, and they also look down on community college versus 4-year university, and that just a product of the fact that most Nigerians look down on community college versus 4-year university. So if you are, the office is technically only supposed to look at what college did you get the I-20 and what are you trying to study and if you're going to go back. That's what they're only supposed to be looking at. But I can tell you that when it comes to community college versus 4-year university, depending on what you're studying, there are community colleges that specialize in certain things. So if that is what the person is focused on and can clearly articulate that to the officer. So the officer may not look at all the documents, but they will ask questions. So if they're able to clearly tell the officer, this is why I'm choosing this school because of this specific program that they have, or, you know, whatever it is, then the officer is able to understand better. But it's, yeah, unfortunately, unfortunately, when it comes to applying from Nigeria, a 4-year university looks better than a community college. I guess that's my short answer after the long winded answer. Okay. If you are joining me and you have questions, please put them in the comments. This is the Q&A section of the updates. Okay. And we do have a dedicated Q&A day the last Friday of the month. So you can also join me then and bring your questions. All right. So last Friday of the month, we do a full Q&A video. There's nothing else going on but the Q&A. All right. Hi, Maria. So Maria says, my dad had a work permit before, but then was revoked, leading to deportation. He returned later that year. How can I, as a U.S. citizen, help him get a green card? His mom is a U.S. citizen. Okay. So, this is so if he was here If he was deported and he came in without a visa, which is what it sounds like happened here, right? If that is the case, then he would have something called a permanent bar to him being able to get a green card even through you. However, you should get a full consultation with an immigration lawyer because he may qualify for other types of visas that waive the permanent bar. Okay, so that's one thing. And then his mom being a US citizen, that's another reason to get that consultation because sometimes people don't know that they're already a US citizen. So, depending on when the mom became a citizen and, all of those things, there's a lot of different factors to look at, but in some cases people are already a citizen and they don't even know it. So even with the deportation, if he was already a citizen before that happened, it wouldn't even matter. He would still be able to have his citizenship. But definitely get a detailed consultation because he may qualify for other types of visas even if there is a permanent bar. Okay. Abena. I filed for my husband in US, waited for approval for 2 years, was now informed to wait till March 2024. What exactly do I expect later? So here's the thing. Sometimes they take a long time to process applications, especially applications that were filed during COVID. Okay, I can tell you that from what we're seeing in our office. Applications that were filed through COVID, because the government was shut down, there was a lot going on. USCIS was not operating at full capacity, so they have a lot of backlog from back then. So when they say wait till March 2024, sometimes they're saying that to say wait till then and then ask us again what's going on with the case. Sometimes it means that they will actually take action on the case. So it really boils down to where they are in the process. If you have done a service request and their response is, okay, we'll have a decision by March 2024, or something will happen by March 2024, then I'll say wait till March. If nothing happens, do another service request. Okay. You have to keep on it. And then you can also get congressional assistance. I may do a whole video on congressional assistance because that's something people don't even think about, is reaching out to their congressperson and asking them for help because you're a US citizen, you're waiting for your husband's case to be approved. It's a whole thing. So if you're a citizen, you can reach out to your congressperson, and as a US citizen, you're their constituent, you can vote for them or against them. So they do tend to listen to you and do tend to at least follow up with USCIS to see where your case is at. So it's really important that you, if you wait till March and there's nothing, I would suggest reaching out to your congressperson and getting them to do an inquiry, and they will typically get more of a response. I will give you an example. I had a case where the case was in immigration court. We finally got it terminated from court, and now it's with USCIS. We were waiting for them to schedule the interview, did the service request, because typically the congressperson's office wants to know that you've done something before you reach out to them. So we did the service request, still nothing. They still didn't schedule the interview. I had my client reach out to their congressperson, and guess what? The interview was scheduled within like a month of her reaching out to the congressperson. So there is value in doing that. Know who your congressman is and reach out to them in these type of situations where you've been waiting 2 years and nothing. Okay. Wendy, is a joint health insurance a must as part of the evidence? Okay, so there's no type of evidence that's a must, especially health insurance. It's not a must. However, it is a good to have. Okay. But it's not a must. The only thing that I tell people that is a must is your tax returns, making sure that you are filing either married filing jointly or married filing separately. Those are your only two options. Okay. Do not file head of household if you are married and living with the person. Okay. If the person is not in the US, then head of household may be your best option. But if you're living with your spouse, you do not qualify for a head of household, and USCIS will know that and use that against you. So if you're living with your spouse, your options are married filing jointly or married filing separately on your tax return. Those are the only things that are a must. But as far as health insurance, joint bank account, a joint bank account is good to have, especially if you're actually going to use the account. If you're not actually going to use the joint bank account, it's not going to be helpful. And I'm going to always tell people that. Do not open a joint bank account if you're not going to use it. And when I say use it, I mean use it for your household expenses. Have income going into it. Have your household expenses going out of it. Okay. And sometimes USCIS, when you give them a bank statement, they do look at to see who's, our paychecks being deposited into the account. Okay. And if you don't want your whole paycheck deposited into the joint account, you can talk to your employer and you can specify, what amount of your paycheck goes into which bank account. So sometimes you can do it by a percentage, or if you have a specific number, you can do it by that number. But just make sure that income is going into that joint account and expenses, household expenses, are coming out of those accounts. So when I say household expenses, I mean your rent or mortgage, your health insurance if you have it jointly, your utilities, all of those things. If you have streaming service, right? Your Netflix, your Spotify, all of those things are coming out of the joint account. So it's really important that you don't just think about, oh, what are all the things we can have together, but what are the things that in our day-to-day life actually make sense. So sometimes people will get a life insurance policy just to have something, but again, I don't recommend it if you don't want it, right? It's good to have life insurance, but if you don't want it, don't get it just so you can show that you have life insurance. I always tell people this. Only get things that actually make sense for your life. All right. And there's so many ways to show your, to have evidence of your relationship. So many ways. Okay. Including, maybe not health insurance, but car insurance is a good one. Listen, we've gotten it done with streaming. Okay. We have gotten it done with streaming, with social media accounts, things like that. So it's not just the typical things that people think about, because the officers know the typical things that people get just to have evidence. They know. Okay. So they want to, and if you're getting the joint account, the joint health insurance, they also want to see that it's paid, that it's not just paperwork. And that goes for the life insurance as well. They want to see that it's actually paid and not just a quote. So that's my spiel on evidence. Oh, this is a good question. Can someone sponsor himself if wife stopped working 6 months ago? It depends, right? It depends on what they do for work. If the employment is if they had a work permit while they were working. Okay. If they did not have a work permit, that employment does not count. That income from when they did not have a work permit would not count. If they have assets, they can still use those assets whether they have work permit or not. Let's say the person has a home that the value is 100,000, right? After mortgage and everything else, the value in it is 100,000. They can use that home as income to meet the sponsor requirements. But if it's based on their income, that income needs to be shown on a tax return, and that income needs to be from legal employment in the US. Okay. And if they're not able to show either of those things, then you would want to have a joint sponsor. That's really key here. You would want to have a joint sponsor. And if you're already filed, you may want to just take that joint sponsor application with you to an interview if you have an interview coming up. And if that becomes an issue. Okay. All right. Well, you're welcome, Wendy. I can't even see your comment. You're very welcome. If you have questions, please feel free to put them in the comments. Just make sure I don't see any questions on Instagram. All right, no questions. All right, great. Well, thank you all so much for joining me. If you would like a private consultation with me to see what you qualify for, we also offer mock interviews, all those things. You can schedule a strategy session by going to my website, lilylegal.com, or by calling my office at 508-443-1788. Oh, and I see a question. I have a VAWA case that has been pending for 40 months. Is that normal? Yes. Unfortunately, yes. That is very normal for VAWA cases. They take way longer than they should. I will tell you that, right? So it's been about almost 3.5 years that you've been waiting. Yeah, that is very normal for VAWA cases. It's nothing to do with your case, right? Typically, when USCIS has an issue with your case, they will send you like a request for evidence or something. But if you're just waiting for them to do the next thing, as long as you're getting the prima facie determination letter every year or every 2 years, depending on the validity of the letter, as long as you're getting those, there's nothing to do. You just have to wait. Okay. If there is an emergency reason to expedite your case, you can request an expedite, but typically USCIS will make that determination based on the evidence that you give them of the reason to expedite. Okay. But that is unfortunately normal. And that's one of the few things that we keep asking them to speed up. So as they're increasing fees, hopefully they will increase their efficiency as well. We can only hope, right? We can only hope. All right. So I don't see any other questions. Thank you all so much for joining me. We have another Q&A at the end of the month. If I can remember what exact date that is, but we do the last Friday of the month, which is January 26th. Okay. So January 26th, we have a Q&A session. You can come with your questions. If you didn't ask questions today, or if you're watching on the replay and you want to ask me your questions live, join me on January 26th. And we are just going to do a full Q&A session where you ask me questions and I give you answers. Okay. And, as y'all know, sometimes the answer is it depends on your particular situation and you should get a consultation, but at least I'll give you information on what it will depend on. I hate when people say it depends without telling you what it actually depends on. So that's what you get from the Q&A sessions is answers to your questions and, next steps that you can take if there's more to be done, right? If it depends on something, I'm going to tell you what it depends on and what you can do from there. All right. And As always, if you have found this helpful, please go ahead and hit the like button. It really does help me know that you all are getting value out of these videos. And as always, thank you so much. And I will be seeing y'all very soon.